Greetings. Welcome to the second in the Questions 3 series. The object is to learn a little bit more about the models, or what they do as much as why they do it. Their inspirations and their modelling habits might help us in a way we didn't realise. This episode we have a warrior of Neeee, who has agreed to tear himself away from his search of shrubberies. Bill of Panzerman's Bunker. Bill makes some incredible dioramas in various scales, sometimes even within the same diorama. If you have not seen his work, go check it out. Here are your questions 3. Question 1. How did you get into modelling? And if you took a break from it, what prompted your return?
Well, Aaron, it's great to be a part of the series. In answer to your question, I got into it. My dad used to build models as a kid. Well, my dad used to build models, and as a kid I used to watch them. And just wanted to emulate my father. You know, I sat down and started building with him. As far as coming back to the hobby, yeah, I left it as a young adult. You know, you start finding the place in the world. You know, you want to go out and have a good time with your friends and, you know, chase the ladies and college and all that stuff. And then got back into it basically because, you know, recapture that youthful, you know, fun and joy of building models, you know, to recapture that little bit of nostalgic feeling. So that's why I got back into it.
Question 2. When it's much easier to do a kit and place it on the shelf, you choose to do elaborate dioramas. What is it that attracts you to dioramas, and do you think that every modeler should try one?
Dioramas do seem to be one of my favorite, you know, means or modus operandi to doing models. I like them because they put a model in context. You know, you can actually put it in a place. You know, instead of a tiger tank, you can put a tiger tank in Kursk or a tiger tank in Tunisia, just by the setting and surroundings and adding some figures. So more than anything, it places it more in a setting. And as far as other modelers trying it, I think it's a natural progression once you get beyond building a really good model that you're happy with and your skills advance to a certain level, that, you know, you should at least attempt it. I think everyone, that's a natural progression. Once you get all your skills lined up, that every modeler wants to challenge himself and herself, and eventually they'll probably try it, but I don't think it's necessary.
Question 3. If you had to improve in one area of your modelling, what would you want to improve?
As far as improvement, you know, I think I'm pretty good at doing armor and figures and dioramas. I like to try and do other subjects, you know, like aircraft and, you know, ships, you know, maybe even a couple sci-fis, just to try something different, you know, to cleanse the palette and try something different. Other subjects was the answer.
Question 4. Who would you say has had the greatest influence on your modelling?
The person that's probably had the greatest influence on my modeling would probably be, actually there's several, but the major one is Shepard Payne. Most modelers probably, or of my age group anyway, probably know him. He used to make fantastic dioramas for Monogram, and he's like a world-class, world master model maker. His dioramas are just, they go to museum quality level. And I was just blown away by seeing how he could take those early Monogram models and turn them into fantastic works of art. So Shepard Payne would probably be the one, you know, that had the greatest influence on me. Still trying to emulate him.
Question 5. If you could have a dream kit, what would it be? And what would make it dream worthy?
This was the one question that kind of stumped me, Aaron. I really don't have a dream kit. I love all kind of model kits and all kind of subjects. I'm sure if they could come up with a dream kit, it would probably be beyond my price range anyway. So I'll stick with my my subjects as is. But that's a good question. I'm sure a lot of people do have some dream kits that haven't been put to plastic or resin or metal yet.
Question 6. If you could own a real vehicle from any era and without restriction, what would it be?
Any vehicle from any era without restriction, well, I don't think my neighbors would like to have a King Tiger parked out my driveway, but that would probably be my one if I didn't have people, you know, calling in the Army or the FBI to check me out for having one. More pragmatic answer would be a Schwimmwagen. I would love to have one of them little amphibian VW type cars from World War II. I just think they're so neat looking. And any vehicle that can go anywhere and, you know, cross water and mud of Russia is a vehicle worth having.
Question 7. Is there anything in the hobby you'd like to see done differently? Techniques, kits, modeling attitudes?
I had to think long and hard about this one, Aaron. What I think would probably benefit the hobby the most, and as far as attitudes and what I'd like to see done, I'd like to see a return to doing just basic modeling. I think the trend is that too many people are falling into this attitude that you have to buy all these aftermarket stuff to do a good model. You can do a good model right out of the box, and you don't need to buy photo etch and resin. And personally, I don't have those kind of deep pockets, and I think that kind of chases away younger modelers and intermediate modelers from the hobby, is that they see all these older, more skilled guys going in for that. That's fine if they can and they have the means to do so, but I don't think it's necessarily, you know, you got to do that to make a good model. Basic model building, construction, painting, you know, decaling, markings, you can do that and make a good model. You don't have to put, you know, 5 times the amount of the kit onto the model to make it a good model.
Question 8. Forced perspective has been used a great deal by the people of James Bond. It is a tricky thing that adds an extra level of complexity to a scene. You have used the technique in some of your dioramas. What made you want to try it, and how much extra work does it give you?
What made me want to try forced perspective is just to really just to add more to a scene. You know, by forcing the perspective, you can put more story into the story. You know, plus the illusion is neat if it's done right. I'm still trying to master it. You know, I'm nowhere near mastering it, but that's one of the reasons why, just to add more story, to put the illusion out there, to make the viewer more, you know, enraptured with the scene. Complexity wise, it's very complex. You know, you almost got to steep your angles to get the illusion right. You got to find the intervening scales are what really does it. Transition has to be smooth from one level to the next level to the next level, and it's hard. A lot of times I have to scratch build scales to make that transitional jump to from the foreground to the background. So it does add a lot of complexity, but it's a neat thing to do.
Question 9. What is your biggest piece of advice for new modelers and or intermediate experienced modelers who are struggling with the hobby?
Biggest piece of advice is just to have fun. You know, don't let this turn into a chore. Don't let this turn into something that adds stress to your life. Keep this fun. When it stops being fun, you know, try something, take a break, and then come back to it. That's the reason why I came back to the hobby, was to have fun. You know, and then don't let it add the stress to your life. This is supposed to be a de-stressor of life.
Question 10. What do you think the future holds for modeling and your place in it?
The future of modeling, it seems to be in its renaissance time now. You know, we used to think it's dying off. It probably is dying off. You see hobby shops closing and stuff, but I think there's people out there that want to recapture that joy of being, you know, a kid and opening a model up, you know, finishing it by dinner and having a good time. So I think the future is good for us older guys, but it could be like the dodo bird if we don't get new people involved and get them away from video games and sit them down and have them discover the joy of, you know, construction. You know, I consider model building a synergistic kind of activity. You know, you have your logical, follow the steps of construction, you know, which is one side of the hemisphere of the brain, and then you have your, you know, decorating and painting and artistic side, which is the other side. So it's a whole brain activity. I think we gotta get more kids involved, and just keep it as a hobby, keep it as a fun. You know, this isn't life or death. This is just enjoyment.
Question 11. What is the worst injury you have sustained while modeling?
The worst injury I've ever had encountered in modeling. It wasn't so much a physical injury, it was more of a psychological one. I went to a contest once, and I'd worked long and hard on a diorama, and to be a looky-loo and a hanger around, I was like sitting there listening to the judges, when they were coming by, and I actually heard this judge dismiss my diorama because he thought it was too complex, and I took everything I had to not to get an assault charge. I wanted to go over and thrash this individual. And then it occurred to me, what am I letting this do? I'm letting another person's subjective response to my creation get me all upset. If you start in competing, you got to deal with that. And that's more or less, it was a blow to my ego. So I learned a valuable lesson that day that, it doesn't matter what other people think about your modeling, it's what you think about your modeling. If it gives you joy and pleasure, the hell with anybody else, what they think. So, that judge was pig-headed and ignorant to even say that about another person's creations, but I can't let him dictate how I respond to a situation. So it was a blow to my ego, but I learned a lot. Since then, I've learned that competition and going to model shows, it's about being thrilled by seeing other people's creations. And it's the fellowship of making, friendships with guys that I've seen all across the country. So that's what I get out of competition. If I win, I win. If I don't, I don't. The experience is the fun part.
There you go, mate. There's your questions 3. And a big thank you goes to Bill for taking the time to have a little fun with us.
Thanks, Aaron. I appreciate this opportunity to get out there to YouTube public and just to say hello to everybody. And I think YouTube is a great forum for us modelers. It gets us out of our basements. It helps us build friendships. And I look forward to contributing more to the community and getting others involved. Thank you for having me.